Everyone, welcome to the February cohort. Thank you very much for joining. Hope you guys are staying warm and hopefully the weather is not going to get bad. But nevertheless, welcome Leadership Live and continuing this Q1 goal to getting this pin at the end of the month. As you know, we just wrapped up last year's and get all 12. You end up getting either a gift card as well as a certificate and obviously the power of knowledge. So thank you for everyone who joins us today, and we'll move forward to OEO's kickoff to our why. So our why is to multiply our blessings and opportunities that place to our trust here at Rosewood. And we always want to start with that with all our meetings, with our Tuesday morning meetings, leadership lives, and kind of relate that with our core values and using the core values to kind of go with our why and making sure we always stay that on track and our goals. So, and then moving forward to our themes. And for this year, we are wrapping up Q1. We're on the second pin, which is visionary leadership, and that one we have Mike Connolly on joining us this month. And we also want to track down Q2 and Q3 and Q4. So thank you everyone for joining and finishing up this Q1 with strengthening leadership and foundation. So this one's going to be a good one. I've started to jump in a little bit about visionary learning and kind of just seeing visionary leadership and kind of seeing how you can kind of see ahead and just kind of planning then, using our why and our core values can help us enhance that. And Mike's going to jump in and help us with that. So Professor Mike Connolly, the floor is yours. We kind of want to go through that.
All right. Thank you, Antonio. You guys can hear me fine, right? Perfect. So let me at least start with, so you get an understanding for what's going to be covered today. I'll go over the table of contents real quick. I'll begin with a little introduction to myself on the next slide. We'll cover various items such as, the different leadership styles that are most common out there. We'll get into visionary leadership, which is the primary subject here, and what visionary leaders really go through, how they focus their attention, what are the qualities and attributes of somebody who is a visionary leader, and ultimately, doing that work, what's the benefits? How does the company benefit? How do the people working there benefit? And, long-term, even the partnerships you have outside of the business. I'll also make sure we cover in future slides, what does that mean to you? What role do you play in that process? How are you as individual employees empowered to be part of that? As well as what role leadership can play in this. But then, at the end, I also want to make sure that we cover for you, how can you better understand what type of leader you are? So almost to look into, where do you fall in some of these categories and how can you take that and empower your own learning process and have, those around you also help you expand and grow your own leadership capabilities. So we'll cover all that. I will say in advance, if you have questions, you're welcome to raise your hand. I think I'm going to cover a lot of this in these slides, but you're welcome to raise your hand. If I don't see it right away, you're welcome to, if I go past it to the next slide, somebody can just tap me on the shoulder. I'll do my best to watch to make sure if I see a hand going up, but I'm not opposed to somebody tapping me on the shoulder and say I didn't notice, because sometimes when you're talking like I'm doing, I look at the materials and I'm not looking at all the areas. So I'm not offended if you have to tap me on the shoulder and say I missed your hand being raised. Okay, so who's Mike Connolly? Currently, I'm doing work over at Campbell University for international management and financial management. So I've got some courses that I'm teaching over there. My career, I've spent 40 years now in the business world. My last roles, all encompassed chief revenue officers and being board members on in companies. But my career spanned a lot of different roles. I had a lot of learning opportunities throughout business. So I had a lot of growth in there, just like each of you will as well throughout your careers. I did do my graduate degree at Duke University. I've written a book on selling the right way. And my business exposure, I happen to think I've crafted in a way that I've made myself opportunistic in the different types of companies I can work for. My first leadership role in my career was back in the 80s. I worked for 6 years in a retail environment, helping open up one store that led to 9 different stores that we opened up in the New York, New Jersey area. That's originally where I'm from. So my exposure, started there as leadership, but I've also worked in startups, less than $1 million, all the way up to businesses that were slightly less than $20 billion globally. I've worked with private equities as well as worked on mergers and acquisitions. And the majority of my background has been really technology focused. So across the technology span, but in addition, I've led the charge on how to transform businesses from just not technology only, but also into automation and robotics capabilities as well. So that's a brief overview of myself. So leadership styles. The 10 most common you tend to hear or read, if you go out even on the internet, you'll look up, there's a lot of books on this, and there's a lot of subject content. But the 10 most common over time of leadership styles are the ones I've listed here. The thing you have to know about these is, one, what are they, but also where do you fit in that realm? Everybody has capabilities and attributes that align with more than one of these. Now, people often have strengths in certain areas. So there might be one leadership style that's more in line with your natural style. But just like businesses transform, individual leaders transform as well. So you also will find that over the course of you in a leadership capacity, working with people, as a business grows, you're going to find, you have the ability to adapt other elements and other leadership styles into the way you're naturally doing things. And that's often what, happens for everybody. And it's best for you and for a business, no different than, a business that's $1 million today, $5 million, $20 million as it grows. That business transforms. So you're not doing things the same way when you reach 20 million as you did at $1 million. You have to adapt, and leaders do the same thing through this process. So as you look at each of these, and we're going to talk a little bit more about these as we get into more discussions of how you can, identify your own personal styles. We're going to focus on visionary today in the upper left corner. That's why I've identified it in a black outline. So visionary leaders, it's not in order of importance, if you will, here. It's really just structured in a way that's consumable for you. But visionary leaders are certainly going to have other aspects as well, whether they're part democratic as well, situational, transformational. You'll do the same as a leader. I will take note for you because the next slide, we're also going to bring up the subject of democratic leader. So before I leave this slide, just note with democratic leader, who encourages team input and engagement, fosters culture and collaboration. I just want to make sure that's on your mind before we get to the next slide. But, spend your time, understand where you fit in this spectrum and the many aspects of it. Some of the best leaders I've worked for, one of the best leaders I worked for did all of this. Some better than others, highly charismatic, very democratic in the way he ran a business, but understood all the transformational aspects of leadership and did a tremendous job growing a business over many years. But you'll go through that yourself as you mature and evolve throughout your business life. So visionary leaders. So let's begin first with what percentage of the population can even be leaders? So a lot of studies on this. According to a study done by Gallup in particular, Gallup's a popular polling group, 10% of the population are natural leaders. That means you're, without training, without any other element of being brought through a learning process and a growth process through your maturity of a business. You're just a natural leader. You take on those responsibilities. In addition to that 10%, there's another 20% who possess leadership traits, and with the right training, guidance, mentorship, one of the best things businesses can do for its employees is have mentorship programs. But through all of that, they can become great leaders. And this is an area in particular where individual companies, their leadership, there's always an eye out for who are the next great leaders. So there is a level of attention that is paid to, everything that, being accomplished by all the people within a company, and trying to understand who's got those attributes to be in a position where we can, help them mature and grow into the type of leader, they can be. And we need within a business. So, all of that is available for people. What percentage of existing leaders specifically are visionary leaders? Well, it's a smaller portion. Visionary leaders have a uniqueness to them. Not everybody is as strong as a true visionary leader at looking into the future and focusing on how the future can look and start to evolve in a business. Based on surveys, and there's many out there, but the real range of that would come down to about 10 or 15% of the leaders that are in business today are considered truly visionary leaders. So again, it's somewhat unique. Not everybody's going to have that element. Now, overall, I told you to remember the democratic leadership style. That's the most prevalent in business. So, close to, you're getting close to 50% of the people that are out there have a democratic leadership style, as part of, how they run a business. It's an important element of what we do and how you grow as a leader to see where you'll fit in that spectrum. So what's visionary leadership? Well, it's an approach to leadership that's innovative, it's forward-looking. There's a focus on the future, which every business, benefits from and needs, everybody throughout the organization. It really encourages a lot of innovation and collaboration, and that look forward. When you're looking forward, it could be a 1, 3, 5, 10-year outlook that you're looking towards. You do need somebody who has that opportunity and ability to see where we could be in the future and how to look at a business, and all of us can help in that process. So who are some examples? Look, we have a rich history, especially in the United States. There's a history of leadership that has transformed where we are in the marketplace as a company, as a country as a whole, and industry-wide. The improvements we've made, it often takes a visionary leader. Some of the examples that you'll find: Elon Musk, certainly what he's done with Tesla, what he's doing with his aspirations around SpaceX, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg. But historically, you've got Steve Jobs with Apple, Dr. Martin Luther King, people like Henry Ford building Ford Motors, presidents, individuals like Oprah Winfrey and everything she's done with her platform beyond entertainment and how to change, things worldwide in the way we approach certain areas of life in general. Very visionary in what they do. So there's a great history, but they also have similar attributes. They have uncompromising standards, as it states there. They're very inspirational. They have a lot of detail orientation to them, but they do take risks. Now, I'll even say on the next slide, risks are a great thing to take, but they have to be calculated. You really have to make sure that you're in a position that the risk is really minimal. There's risk no matter what you're doing, but it's minimal because you've done the work and the effort and put it in place and the people around it to limit it. But they can really turn the vision into reality, and that's an important aspect of the skill sets they have for a business. So in terms of qualities, this is this is important. There's a lot they do. There's a lot we each individually can do, and the attributes and qualities we have. I tend to always start with the discussion around their communication skills. So in business, in life in general, communication skills are incredibly important. Your opportunity to share information, speak with people, whether it's individually or as large groups, is very valuable to the process of transformational changes within a business and viewing something in the future that others, they are not thinking about themselves. The more that communications can happen and occur, really the smoother the process goes. They're very creative, so they have a high creativity side, especially around innovation and understanding, what a business can be doing 5 or 10 years from now, even though, the norm is to, work in business the way it works today. It's structured well, it's working, but somebody like a visionary has to, look to see where can we be making improvements and what can we be doing better on the benefit of the employees, the customers, the partners we have externally to the business. So they tend to have a mindset towards that. Their emotional intelligence, emotional intelligence is important for all of us. It's understanding the checks and balances around not only our own emotions, the others we work with. It's understanding how to demonstrate empathy across the business. So while a visionary is often looking at change that could occur in the future, they have to be empathetic to how that applies to everyone else in the business, and understanding to laying out and communicating, what those benefits will be, what the work might be, but certainly why it's the right outcome for everybody involved. So they'll be very involved with that. They're going to be resilient. We talk in here, you see it a lot. I know I come from a sales background, right? So there's always a lot of talking. There's no failing, there's learning. And I fully get that. And I actually believe that myself. I mean, you're not going to create something new. You're not going to improve a business. You're not going to improve yourself unless you try things. Will they always work out 100%? Absolutely not. But that visionary has a way of seeing it more as a positive to fail than a negative. And that's incredibly important. It's a strength of mentality that enables them to see past, did I just fail? Well, I didn't. I just found a way not to do it. And now we have to learn new ways to do it better. And that's a conviction that somebody who, has an eye on the future can work with. They can be bold. They're a risk taker, like I mentioned earlier, but it's calculated risks. It's important to take risks in life and in business, but to do so in an educated way, in an informed way, have knowledge around it, have the information at your fingertips to demonstrate that while it's a risk, it's not as risky as it could be if I was just, I don't want to say winging it, but that is what, some people, might do. And taking more of a deliberate approach to be educated and informed far before we ever take the actual risk. And they collaborate really well. They do have a growth mindset, I get it, but the collaboration goes a long way, especially across the team. That communications and collaboration is incredibly important to everybody throughout the business and the success of whatever that vision might lead us towards. Involving everybody, being a great listener, being a good communicator, understanding the pieces of the business, which is really where the next slide would get to is the first thing you always have to do is understand the business. It's not just a little bit of information as well. If you're going to understand where a company's going in the future, that visionary leader is going to be very deliberate about knowing what you offer as a business to your customer base, to your partners, who are the people involved, how the operational structure works today, what work well, what appears to need to be improved upon. Is the culture structured in such a way that it can adapt as well along with any changes and visionary thoughts we have about the future. And the strategy is one that always changes. Look, I myself for 20 years have spent a lot of time in this very space, especially around change management. I've owned a lot of strategy, and that's something that's always evolving. As a leader, you're always trying to make sure, how do we continue to stay ahead of, all the other impacts to a business, whether it's competitors, whether it's marketplace changes, or anything else that might be going on across the country or worldwide, depending on, what your exposure is to worldwide changes. But, that strategy is something that's always on the mind, and how to look into the future. And of course, you need the outcomes for it. We all understand that. But they do understand those things. They start there. And then a visionary leader is really going to look at, where do we want to be in the future, and what is that future? Is it just 12 months from now, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? Let's lay all that out, understand what our goals might be for that time period, and really better understanding what our expectations might be, where we could evolve and transform as a business as a whole. And they're really looking to put all the pieces together of where we are today versus what needs to adapt and transform into the future. So there's a lot of work that goes into that thought process, that engagement process. I say here again, as I'll say on most slides, communicate, communicate, communicate. So, they are going to be sharing, they are going to be talking to people throughout the business. They want input. A visionary leader is going to need to hear from everybody at every level of the organization, so they can fully understand what they experience today from those roles, and how that could change within the visionary landscape of the future. So it's a really big endeavor. It's a lot of thought process that goes into it, and everybody here plays that role, as we'll discuss in a few slides of how that role is for you. But there's a lot of thought leadership that goes into it, and it's hugely important, for the visionary leader to be fully engaged across the board. So I make some comments here. There are, the visionary leader tends to be able to isolate down into what's important for the future, and their mind is able to, I don't want to say keep away from the distractions, but the traditional mindset of, there's many people in a business who like the way things operate today. It all works good. Why are we making changes? Don't worry about the future. It's going the way it should be going today. Or, the mindset that, I need to just manage the issues I have today, and I'll handle what happens tomorrow, tomorrow. But today is what's important, because that's what I can be in control of, is some of that mindset. Well, the visionary leader understands that, they see that, but they also have to work past that. They also have to know, tomorrow is going to come. It's something that has to be taken care of, and they have a great ability to, adapt beyond maybe some of just, the traditional mindset that we identify here. Now, for the challenges that a visionary leader faces, they can be many. They can be easily managed and controlled, if you will. But, I make the statement here that taking people to places they themselves cannot envision is never simple. It is a challenge at times, because you are dealing with individuals as a whole. It's not like you're just dealing with products. You're dealing with people. And not everybody enjoys change. Not everybody's comfortable with change, and it's fully understood. And frankly, a visionary leader has a lot going on in their head. They're doing a lot of planning. They're doing a lot of calculating. They have a tremendous amount of ideas and concepts that maybe everybody doesn't fully understand. And that's part of why I picked the image I picked is, on the left side of the brain, you got that visionary leader who has a lot of complex ways of seeing things. But the reality is, by the time they come and communicate back to the business, they have to transform that message from something that's rather complex into something that people can consume. And I liken it to a song, right? There are certain songs that resonate with people. There's certain art that resonates with people. Well, that visionary has to be good enough to understand the complexity of building something, but also the importance of breaking it down and simplifying it so that it's right for everybody to understand and consume at all levels of the organization. Because again, everybody has a different way of hearing things and viewing things. So taking that complex into simplicity is important. That communications piece is very important. The overcoming resistance to change, it is always there for leaders. It's hard to get around because again, you're dealing with human beings. There's people who are working, they're concerned not just about what's going on in their role in the business, but they have a family life, they have things outside the business that they have to be concerned about. So there's always a concern that we all will have to some degree or some level, that they're going to need someone who might be thinking about the future and might be thinking about transformational change. They're going to need to know what that means to them, and does it put them at risk? So that visionary has a great opportunity to sit down with everybody, whether it's a large group like we're doing here, or by department, or even some individuals. The right visionary will do all those things, and make sure that they spell a message out that's unique and important to each individual in this process, so that it not that it feels better, but it's better understood exactly what it means for them and their future. So it's a lot of what a visionary leader will do. Part of those challenges, managing unrealistic expectations, that's some of their own. Maybe they set their goals too high initially, and they have to modify it as time goes on. That's important. So they have the ability to understand, where they have to make those tweaks. Maybe management's giving them aspirations of magnificent growth, and they have to help, management understand what's realistic based on the pace that you can make transformation and lead to a future state. Neglecting practical details and balancing innovation with stability are very similar, meaning it's great that you're going to build for the future, that you got a vision for the future, and eventually you're going to start to implement changes that are going to lead us to a future state. But along the way, you got to run a business, and you have to run a successful business. So that visionary leader has to be really good at understanding this is the way it's done today. This is where we want to go. But how do we get there without interrupting the way we're doing business, yet we're still transforming in the right way? Because we don't want employees to lack understanding for where these changes are coming in. We don't want customers to feel the impact and the imbalance of how changes are taking place. So the good visionary leader is going to have a really good plan, a really a plan that gets well executed seamlessly. But that's a lot of the work they're doing. That's a lot of the challenges they have to own throughout this process. And it's a patience game. I call anything that you're doing in change management and visionary, it's a patience element. How much time is it going to take realistically? And making sure everybody along the way, executives and all employees and all customers and partners who see it, one, they don't feel it. They might know what we're doing, but they shouldn't have to feel it as an interruption to their day. But how long will it take, and managing it in such a way where it can feel very seamless and non-interrupting to what we do. So all that said, what role do you have in the visionary process? And everybody has a role. Yes, there is going to be an individual who is a visionary leader. That is the main individual, maybe thinking this through and putting all these plans together. That's natural. But do you have a role in this? Depending on who you are in the organization, and there's many, what role do you play? And I would tell you that everybody has a role, and the visionary leader should be talking to every group, department within the organization, every individual. Sometimes if you've got 20,000 employees, a little bit harder to talk to every individual, but smaller companies, mid-sized companies, you can make that happen. But you all have a role. It's just a matter of understanding what that is. So the more you have the opportunity to collaborate with a visionary leader and the individuals that they're working closest with, sharing of information, your feedback, that feedback throughout the business is very helpful to understanding trends that are going on and things that might be impactful, positive or negative, to the plans that are being put into place. And ask a lot of questions. There's no reason you shouldn't ask questions of a visionary leader. You know what's going on. And ask how you can support. Can you be a part of it? You can't have everybody in the company be directly involved with all the planning, but ask and see what role you can play. But everybody has the ability to provide feedback and input and share thoughts and ideas that can be utilized by somebody in a visionary leadership role. So also actively engaging with the vision, as the concept is being put out, as the thought process, be a part of it, believe in it. I guess at the bottom, what I'm saying is essentially acting as an ambassador for the leader's ideas and driving the collective process towards the desired state is hugely beneficial. And that's through every role within a business. That's not just the leaders themselves, somebody who's in a management role, but that's everybody in the business. And the visionary leader will do their job to make sure you understand how that can be something you can participate in and do so in such an effective way. And that's through that conversation and feedback chain that you'll be able to provide them, and they can provide you and communicate well across the business. So as an individual, even if you're not tasked with being a visionary leader, let's say you go through all the studies that we'll talk about in a couple of slides, and you find out you're a certain type of leader. Maybe you're not a visionary leader, but that's okay. But how can you demonstrate visionary leadership skills and needs? Well, look at the framework and the scale of the business and what you're doing today, and start looking at it from the viewpoint of how can I articulate a clear and compelling vision for the future? Beyond the tasks that I'm doing today, the transactional type things and the stuff to just make sure the business is moving forward. But you yourself in your role, what would you do in the future differently? How would you look at, expanding your current role for the organization in such a way it would be transformative for the needs of the company, the marketplace, the industry as a whole? Start to have those thoughts and play that out in your head, engaging in your teams in achieving that vision. No reason not to share all this. Talk to your teams about it. Everybody plays that role, but everybody has to feel important enough that you're asking them to think it over and be a part of it themselves, and that they can have a great impact on it. The culture, the innovation, the risk-taking. Again, I keep saying calculated. I'm sorry to do that, but I just want to remind you, risk-taking is great. Just make sure that you've done your due diligence, you've built the knowledge, you've done everything to make sure that while it's a risk, it's not as risky as it could have been. And inspiring others. I've spent a lot of my career, working with a lot of people in the business just to, inspire and help them to desire more. Regardless of what role you're in, you have the ability to do that. You can do it with peers. You can inspire your own leaders. Maybe somebody who you report to. You have the ability to inspire more than maybe most people understand. So it's something that can be done across the whole business. And just the demonstration to long-term goals is hugely important. I know we get caught up in our daily business. It's natural. We all do it at every level. But the consistency of wanting to draw back on, okay, great, we got our work done today, our transactional type work, but how do we do it better in the future? What could we be doing more? To always have that train of thought is going to go a long way. It'll go a long way for anybody in any role you are in the organization, and it'll be recognized. I guarantee those who are in maybe leadership roles today recognize that, and they see it in others. And it's great for a business as a whole, and it's great for you as an individual. So at the end of the day, all that being said, visionary leader does what they need to do. You're doing your part and your role within the organization. So what are the benefits of that visionary leadership? Well, there's many. There's certainly helping companies grow and improve the business as a whole, growing revenues, growing profit. Profit is always hugely important for an organization. So you increase your outcomes, fully get that. You might be able to optimize your business in many ways, not just cost controls, as I say here, but maybe you're optimizing and improving your efficiencies and productivities across all your team members, your operational structures, your processes, the way you're doing business. All of that can help. All of that eases the way each individual person in the company is structured and working today. It also inspires people. One of the things too that I find, or I have found throughout my own career as we've built new models and we've put new strategies in place, and we've sort of built and inspired an employee base that is thriving and very happy with some of the changes. You can attract new talent really easy for the business and attract more talent. You can just keep expanding in ways that's so important, because who doesn't want to work for an organization that is thriving in all aspects of the business and working very well? You guys have your core values as a business are tremendous. I like what you've built as core values, and it says a lot about the way you care about your people and what you're striving for as an organization. And it's very people based, which is great. But your ability to do all these as a visionary leader and still continue to expand in every aspect of the way necessary for a business to grow, and again, especially with being able to attract the talent you want as a business, is hugely beneficial. So I think these are the last couple slides. So anybody who's starting to get overwhelmed with seeing too many slides, I believe there's only 2 more left. So what type of leader are you? So there's multiple ways you can check into this. First, self-assessment. Reflect on your past leadership experiences. And if you don't consider yourself in a leadership role today, you're in a role that will ultimately lead to leadership, and you're probably leading more things than you think. Even if you don't have a leadership title, I am quite sure you're leading things without realizing you're in a leading structure from the role you're doing and how you engage, with others in the business and even a potential customer base. But reflect on how you've handled all that. Analyze your decision-making process. A lot of what I teach, over at Campbell is not necessarily just what equations are telling you to do from a textbook perspective, but how do you turn that into a decision-making process? What's your strategy and thought behind it? What risks are involved? What financial impact does it have? How do you think through this? Because those are the things you're most responsible for, and you have to be a decision maker. So analyze how you've done that from a self-assessment perspective. Consider your values and priorities, and ask for feedback. There's nothing that you can't ask other people about how you've done things. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. I know we don't often want to ask those things, but I will tell you throughout my career, the best way for me to evolve myself is knowing what other people perceive of how I do my job and what I'm trying to strive for. Where I've had mentors help me has been a highly valuable asset, because that tends to be, a straightforward conversation, and let's just get to the facts. We don't have to sugarcoat anything. Let's just have that feedback that'll help me be a better me for myself and the company. So go through that process. But there's also, I'll identify them on the next slide. There's some leadership style assessment quizzes you can take. They're highly available and very useful. I've had quite a few done, and it's illuminating what it can provide for you. Again, I'll end on this slide with examining how you approach decision making, motivate your team, interact with others in a leadership role. all a tremendous benefit if you can see within yourself how you do that, and maybe areas where you can improve upon and be better, is all a positive effort for you. So from my final slide perspective, the assessment tools, some of the most popular are Myers-Briggs. It's been around for decades. Thomas Kilmann, also been around for decades now. Myers-Briggs also now owns Thomas Kilmann. So it's really not that it's the same website, but you can click on each, but they have separate things they're measuring on. But those I recommend. One, they've been around the longest, and I said they've been around for decades. So they've evolved their assessments through all these years, and that evolution for them is important. It's not like I can find various websites that also offer what they call free assessments, and they're rarely free. If you find the wrong one you're clicking on. But the Myers-Briggs and Thomas Kilmann ones, because they've evolved, are taking into account everything the way leadership was done many years ago and how it's transformed to the way business is done today. So that evolution is incredibly important to when they're assessing you on how you yourself fit into today's environment in 2025. And within those assessments, it gives you also evaluations on that morphing process over the years, and what to look ahead on. There's another book I'll recommend, and this is a book. This isn't. They might do it just by website now, but it's called The Clifton Strengths Assessment by Gallup, the same company that does a lot of the Gallup polls. The book is interesting. I offered this to both my kids as well as they were getting through high school and college. It helps you assess all your strengths and weaknesses, not just your leadership strengths, but everything that you have as interests and skills and capabilities of your own personal attributes. And it helps you at the end define areas where you'll thrive more, whether it is in a job or a career. So it helps you narrow all that down. You can also pick up this book at the public library. So really easy to go find, and walk through the assessment process. And then of course there's various online tools. So there's many things out there. Harvard offers some leadership assessment tools, but I think if you look at some of these ones that I've identified, they'll really help you in many ways to better understand what your strengths and skills are today. I think that's it. Yeah, we're down to the questions. So I'm more than happy to answer questions if you have any. I'd be happy to answer whatever I can. So if anybody wants to raise their hand or unmute and just ask a question, feel free. Okay, I don't think I'm seeing any hands up. I don't think Antonio's on anymore either, but no, Meredith, I think you're on. Do I see any hands up? Okay.
I don't see any hands up, and okay. I don't have any questions, but I do just want to thank you for you taking the time today to talk to us and sure. To teach us so much about visionary leadership and all the information we can take away from this and apply to ourselves. So thank you so much for taking the time today and being with us. Especially on a snow day.
I appreciate it. Yeah. It's not snowing yet. I don't know if it's snowing near you, but it's not snowing yet. But yeah, we're going to get snow for sure.
It's snowing, but I'm excited because it's not sticking. Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Okay. Well, no, I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope I provided something that was useful for you.
Absolutely. You definitely did. I hope you have a fabulous day, and thank you all for tuning in.
You as well. Thank you very much.
Stay warm. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.